And apparently, Julie Gundlach, what women really want is to not cook dinner anymore. Tired of the whining, tired of the complaining. Just shut up and eat your fast food.
Hi there. That's right. I really appreciate you having me on the
Hi.
show because you have saved me from being oppressed by my children. I was able to take a break with cooking dinner for them, so thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm glad that we could save you from the tyranny
Of dinner?
Of parenthood. Yeah, the tyranny of the home cooked meal.
Yes.
Which, I mean, look, this is I think Exhibit A, Julie, in some folks' inability to be able to tell the difference between what a serious problem is and what an unserious problem is. We have lots of serious problems in the world right now. I would have to say that the tyranny of the home cooked meal is not among, let's say, the top 100.
Indeed. I mean, I think, Cameron Gray had a great tweet out there. I retweeted it yesterday saying, this is a woman who has not written anything about the rapes and beheadings in Iraq. She's written nothing about the rapes in England yet. Spends time talking about the tyranny of dinner. So yeah, I think you're right. And what I wrote yesterday is this is what makes feminists these sort of mainstream feminists look ridiculous, and why they so often are not really talked about, why their ideas are not new, why they focus on unimportant things. They could be doing some real good out there, but instead they're focusing on these the hashtag first world problems. I mean, this is a classic case of that, and yet mainstream feminists focus on this stuff and make it seem like it's a really serious American problem.
It does. So let me just ask you, because I asked my wife this question last night and she laughed at me. And she said, seriously, because I mean, my wife, she really enjoys cooking. It's one of her favorite things to do. There are all kinds of, tyranny of the laundry basket, I think is something that she would opine about, but tyranny of the home cooked meal, not something that she would really complain about. What of the moms that you've talked to?
Well, look,
said about.
Well, I mean, it's general, disbelief that someone actually took time to write about this. I mean, one of the issues that really amazes me is Amanda Marcotte talks about, this whining, and it's not fulfilling. I mean, I don't know if this woman has children, but I don't know any woman who thought feeding grumpy toddlers would ever be fulfilling. I mean, this is just sort of part of the job. They're annoying, they complain, they demand other things, they whine. I mean, has she never hung out with a child? I mean, I just don't understand this idea that any of us should be fulfilled by, feeding our young children. Young children are typically very picky eaters. This is not anything new. They sort of grow out of it, and especially if their families, expose them to other things. But, kids being picky eaters is nothing new, and yet they've managed to make this yet another example of victimhood for women, that they're expected to do this. She also misses the point, and I'm sure, your wife would agree with this. There is something nice about feeding people. It's part of nurturing. It's part of taking care of kids and mothers, even though it can be annoying. I feel like I'm doing something good for my kids, and she sort of glosses over that.
Well, yeah, because that is part of, I think, being a parent. In fact, as I read that piece, there was some of this I was just kind of rolling my eyes. I was like, this is just part of being a parent and having kids. Is that yes, you're right. Kids will whine. It happens. It happens a lot. It happens about more than just food. But you learn as a parent to deal with these things, and you certainly, I would hope, at least by the time the second or third kid comes around, you learn not to encourage the whining. You learn what you need to be doing as a parent to stop that from taking place, or at least to not let it affect you.
Yeah, and another part of her piece that I think is really insulting is, it's a typical left-wing sort of myth to perpetuate the idea that poor people are just too stupid to figure out how to fry up a chicken breast in a pan or how to boil some pasta. And in her piece, she talks about how this burden is particularly bad for people who live either at or underneath the poverty line. And, I'm writing a piece on this, and I hope it'll go up soon. But, I make the point that that research shows that, no, actually, people who poor families, do actually a very good job of having simple family meals. They don't need sort of the assistance of the government, as so many people on the left often say, like, oh gosh, these things are much, the daily tasks that one must do to get through the day, are just too hard for poor people. So it really, she focused her piece on one very small study. Many other studies are out there saying that, look, people make simple meals. They manage to feed their kids simple meals. And again, I think the point that Amanda is really trying to make here is that we, and she sort of concludes her piece by saying, we need to address, what makes this a burden, which, is sort of code for we need a government program. And so, this is typical of the left. Again, I think people really don't have that much trouble, making pretty simple meals, rice and beans, that kind of stuff for their families.
All right. Now, when you go to the grocery store, Julie, Moms Demand Action would like to ensure that you leave your gun behind. They've launched this big ad campaign, first print campaign, I think, that they've launched, taking on a private company for following state and local laws.
Right. Yeah, they really have a knack for for also focusing on non-issues, right? I mean, I don't think that moms are, I don't think this is a common occurrence, first of all, to see people, packing heat at the grocery store. But, and again, these are state laws that are put in place. These businesses are like, I'm just following what the state law says. And again, it sort of follows, how Moms Demand Action is acting sort of follows the Food Babe, where they go in, they harass a local manager, they harass a local business. And what I hope these stores really understand is this isn't actually their customer base. A lot of these groups, they're a very loud minority. They sort of, squawk and wave their arms. But in fact, it's a very small percentage of people who are demanding this stuff. They're real consumers, just want low prices. They want to get in and out of the store. And if they're allowed to bring their gun in, they want to bring their gun in, but they don't really care about these issues. So again, Moms Demand Action is sort of, proving itself to be pretty irrelevant and really kind of focusing on issues most people don't care about.
It's interesting you bring that up. The Indianapolis Star, the hometown paper for Shannon Watts, the head of Moms Demand Action, the editorial page editor has or the opinion editor has a piece, A Gun Ban at Kroger, Let's Get Real, that he published this afternoon. And it's interesting, he says there's an Indianapolis case that illustrates another inherent problem with the Moms Demand campaign. 3 years ago, he said, a manager at a Northwest Side Kroger pulled a handgun to stop an apparent armed robbery.
Yeah.
The manager, who later resigned, acknowledged that he had violated a company policy that barred employees from having guns on Kroger property. And the author of the piece says, here's the thing. The violence occurred despite the company's ban on guns at work. The manager, apparently aware of the policy, chose to carry a gun to work anyway. And the apparent armed robber chose to carry that gun into that store, knowing that Kroger had an anti-robbery policy as well.
Right.
He says there's no reason to believe that the new policy would be any more effective than the old one in preventing actual violence. But this is, they're not looking to make, that's the thing. I wish that Tim Swearens would have just kind of drawn that conclusion. It's not about actually reducing violence. It's about winning that press release victory.
Yeah, I don't know,
to be able to say, look, Kroger bent to our will.
I really think an armed robber, when they hear that, Kroger has signed on, or whatever store signed on, they might think twice. They might think, I'm not supposed to bring this gun in when I rob. I'm going to rob a store without a gun because apparently Moms Demand Action doesn't want me to enter a store with the gun. So I think this is going to be, as a mom who goes to the store often during the day by myself with my little children, I would be thrilled if another mother was in there packing heat and could take out a robber who comes in with a gun. So Moms Demand Action yet again proves itself to not really care about women and not to care about the victims of these crimes. And again, I think they reveal themselves to be be pretty atrocious. So hopefully more people will clue into their motives here.
Talking with Julie Gundlach of the Independent Women's Forum. All right, Julie, I think over the weekend in Stanton, Virginia, there's going to be a lot of talk of freedom, food freedom, I think firearm freedom as well, because it's a group of farmers. So I know there's going to be a lot of talk of the Second Amendment, as well as scolding the nanny state for telling us how to eat at this food freedom festival. I know that you're probably not going to be able to make it there, but you've been engaged, I see online, with some passionate advocates for food freedom.
There's a split in this group. There's a real split in this group, and it was a very civil conversation that I had with this particular farmer. But there's a split in this group about freedom and then safety, and so I think all of us are free. I think we should be free to have the products we want. But what I'm also for is not hiding the facts and telling parents the risks involved with eating some things straight from a farm. I am fully supportive of farmers' rights to sell their products, but I also think that we shouldn't hide the facts about how certain products do present certain risks, especially to children. And again, so sort of in line with the culture of alarmism, we don't want to alarm anyone. We want to just stick to the science and the facts and the latest medical information. And so among these sort of food freedom folks, there is a split about these things. And again, we just really want people to be safe and eat food that isn't going to harm them.
I thought, and by the way, I thought it was a very respectful a conversation and engagement despite the disagreement. So I applaud both of you, actually, for the conversation. It was nice to see. It's rare to see on Twitter. You guys didn't end up calling each other names, or nobody wished someone to die in a fire. It was fantastic, actually, to read that. It was very, very affirming.
Twitter's tough for me. I think I'm a little too sensitive for Twitter, but I do my best to keep everything civil. Can't say that for everyone, but I try.
Well, there you go, Julie. Thank you so much for coming on the program. It's always good talking with you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
I'm heading back to the kitchen to do my to do my tough work for the kids here. I'm feeling pretty oppressed even as I talk about it. So off to do more slave work.
The shackles and the spatula and just
it's terrible.
Whistle while you work, Julie. You'll get through it.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on.
All right, thank you, Julie Gundlach of the Independent Women's Forum.